Our next session in January will be on the 18th with Melissa De Corte. She will be presenting about M language in Power Query. So looking forward to it. It's already available for registration. If you are interested, feel free to join us. And there's other meetup groups working around the world, all about Excel. Some are about Excel in Power BI. And if you follow Faraz on LinkedIn, he always puts up this list. There's a couple of sessions still going on this month, 2 more. And so that's that. I will add my PowerPoint presentation to the list of the documents that we will share on the email that I will send a couple of days after this session. So if you look for your email, you'll be able to then have this information on a PDF deck. There's an Excel event happening in February, Global Excel Summit. It is the 3rd year happening, and it's a very important, big, and very good event about Excel. Lots of content, lots of speakers, a very good interface for networking. You are given space and the technology, adequate technology to connect with other people, other attendees. So I do encourage you to join if you are available those days. There's lots to learn about. If you want to register, if you haven't registered yet, you can get 10% off with the code Celia10. So when making your registration in the website. There's another meetup by Microsoft from a program called Reactor Toronto that presents about all technologies related to Microsoft. So if you are interested in exploring other technologies, feel free to check this other meetup group. And this is the meetup group, a meetup group for Excel consultants. So if you are interested to join, feel free to do so. Okay. And if you then look at this PDF, you will see information about my newsletter, where I always publish every month information about what has been improved or added to Excel. I give some Excel book recommendations and other information, my blog, my YouTube channel, this YouTube channel for the meetup, and my training program. So you will be able to find that information on the PDF that goes with the documents from this session. And here we are. We have Vitor Momoh today. I am pulling up here the summary about his resume, let's call it like that. So Vitor Momoh is a petroleum engineer by practice, a Microsoft Most Valuable Professional, and a certified Microsoft Excel expert with years of experience in training in Excel and Visual Basic for applications, so VBA. And Victor's passion for knowledge sharing and teaching stems from having teaching parents. And he, alongside some other MVPs, runs the Nigerian Excel Users Group, NEU, a group on Telegram for enthusiasts of Microsoft Excel. When he is not solving Excel problems, he can be found playing the drums or listening to music. So what else is missing from this information, Victor? Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today. And there's the information there on the screen if you want to catch up with, connect with Victor on LinkedIn or his YouTube channel. And yeah, so I will leave this stage and the mic for you now. Thank you, Victor, for joining us, and let us know what you have for us today.
All right. Okay, so thank you very much. I take it that you can hear me well, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right, so let me go ahead and share my screen. And thank you for the introduction. I think it's probably more elaborate than I would have done myself. Okay, so let me pull this up here. Okay, so can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I may just pull up a a PowerPoint and, just in my usual fashion, just say something humorous, which is, I just got this picture, people have been complaining that I have one picture online and they got tired of it. So I just got a new one and I felt, okay, why not just create a PowerPoint slide that has it? So that's the whole idea of this slide. It wasn't like I really needed to have a slide, but
you just want to look good.
Exactly. I just needed to make a point so that in case they join, they can see that, okay, he has taken a new picture. So yeah, so that's the whole idea. But I would say welcome to everyone who has joined, and I'll say, Celia, thank you very much for this opportunity. It's really a pleasure, always a pleasure to have these opportunities, because you have only 12 speakers in a year, so to be able to get one slot out of that is it's really quite an honor, I would say. And,
we are privileged and honored to have you here. What time is it for you there now?
10:40 now.
10:40
p.m.
in the evening.
In the night, yes.
We see you.
Exactly.
We are the lucky ones to have you at so late in the evening working for us.
It's fine. It's fine. I think my brain is still quite active, so it's okay.
Good.
I had this slide, but really there's nothing I'm going to say here that you haven't said. So I think that's already covers for that. So just as an introduction, not of myself anymore, because I think Celia has said everything that needs to be known about me. We want to talk about the new array and text functions in Excel. Most of us that follow, the trends know that there were 14 functions that were released, earlier in the year, initially, to Office insiders, and then later to, all 365 subscribers. Sometimes it's difficult for even me myself to keep track of, what channel has what, is this feature on the insider channel? Is it on the current channel? But at least I'm sure that this one, everybody who is on, Office 365 already has it. So I just felt, okay, it was a good opportunity to, review some, of these functions. They're very simple things. I know most times when people come to my meetups, they're like, oh, Victor always has a lot of fireworks. And, I'm like, okay, no, this is December, so let's keep things very simple. So it's going to be very simple stuff. But, well, you will be the judge of simple at the end of it all. Okay, so I think
you were waiting for the fire. So
you may need to call the fire service. So okay, so here's just a summary. And one thing I realized, again, not just with the text functions, with everything I do in Excel, is that you kind of get to master them by doing a lot of examples. When you, think a concept, try and use it a lot of times, it sticks that way. So what you will see is that, I have like so many tabs, some of them similar, some slightly different. But the idea is that by the time you do few or a lot of examples on a particular, function, you should definitely have a good grasp of the function. Okay, so what I just have here is just a summary of the functions, the text manipulation, some that we've waited for forever, doing a dynamic text to columns, which is like your text split. That's really good. Text before, text after. Then you have the other ones which are used for combining arrays, and they are really, really cool. VSTACK HSTACK. Then those that you have for reshaping arrays. So if the dimension of the array to row and to column, what they do pretty much. So you have maybe an n by n, multiple rows, multiple columns. Then, you kind of reshape that into one row, that's to row. You reshape it into one column, that's to call. So why the WRAPCOLS and WRAPROWS are doing the opposite of that, meaning that when you have one column and you want to break it into multiple columns, you can use WRAPCOLS or WRAPROWS. When you have one row, you want to break it into multiple rows, so, but I think, just sitting down and reading through this, will not do justice to it. You'll get to appreciate it more, when we do some examples. So I guess that's how, we are going to roll. And I also said, if you looked at the thumbnail that Celia created, there's the let function there. And why did I bring in the let function? I may just, state that, up front. Maybe that would just help create at least some context before we go in. So the let function really helps to improve, performance and easy reading and composition. I just took those two texts from, the Microsoft site. I was too lazy to create something of my own, so I just copied it, and pasted it here. But that's the point, really. When you have a function and there's a particular portion of it that is repeated like multiple times, it means that Excel gets to recalculate that many times. So, there are sometimes you say, oh, if VLOOKUP of this is this, then VLOOKUP of this, then VLOOKUP of that. It means Excel is going to compute the VLOOKUP as many times as you have it there. But when you then use the let function and you just declare it once, then that helps to reduce, the time spent computing it. Then the other thing is that it helps your formulas to be more readable. So you may see me use the let, a little in what we'll be doing today, but it's really, very easy stuff. So let me get into the examples. I'm conscious of the time because I have the habit of talking too much. So let's get into what we have first of all. So I will start off with the text functions, and I'll start with TEXTSPLIT. And there's no need speaking too much about TEXTSPLIT. It's what it is. So you have, text, and you want to split it based on a delimiter. Okay, so the assumption here for the simple case is that you have a consistent delimiter. So let me give you a simple example which would help. For example, you have this here, and the second name here is my name. It's much longer than this, but I had to shorten it so that I don't scare people. So if you wanted to split this into multiple columns, and you can see here that the delimiter here is a space, right? You can use the TEXTSPLIT. So let me just show you the simple example. And as always, I start very simple. Okay, so you do TEXTSPLIT. The first argument is the text. So I just pick the text, that's that. And then it asks me for the delimiter. Now you notice that you have two of them. You have the column delimiter, you have the row delimiter. If you pick the column delimiter, then it means the result would go from left to right. If you pick the row delimiter, then the result will go from, top to bottom. So here, my delimiter is a space. So if I did this, pretty much, this is what we would normally do with text to columns. But the good thing about this one is this dynamic. So if I change, anything here, for example, and change Victor to victory, you can see that gets updated, in here. Okay, so instead of using maybe the column delimiter, if I'd used the row delimiter, meaning I put another comma, what happens is that, so you don't need to do a transpose, like say, oh, okay, if I can get it this way, then I transpose. You can just use the column delimiter or the row delimiter, depending on your situation. So I try to always put the description, but again, I may not be able to walk you through all of it. But as we go on in the examples, you'll get to, appreciate it. Okay, so let me go to the very first example I have, which is a very simple example where I want to split this by a particular delimiter. As you can see, this is just in column A. So I have all of this in one column. And the delimiter here is very clear. It's the pipe symbol, right? So it means that if I use the pipe, I can get to split this. So I'm just going to do a TEXTSPLIT. And if you think it's too simple, just wait. So you do the pipe. And you see that, okay, so I have everything broken down. So I can, all right. Okay, let's see if I can just copy and paste that. Okay, so, and that's everything here. But you see, one thing you have to realize is that when you use the text functions, even if you have what looks to you as a numeric output, it's actually text, right? So what it means is that if you look at these higher dates, these are supposed to be the serial numbers for the higher dates. But these dates right now, they are text, okay? So if you select a few of them and you look down at my status bar, you can see that it's showing me a count. If this were numerics, then you would see statistics, right? You would see main, max, sum, or whatever it is. So now, this is an interesting one, but because you use the TEXTSPLIT anyway, it's going to return the result as a text. So how can I probably fix, this kind of example? So what I may try to do is that that if you perform any mathematical operation on a number that is stored as text, it becomes a number, right? Most people know that. Okay, so by mathematical operation, I mean anything. You could do 0 plus this, 1 times that. You could use the double unary minus. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to change this, for example, and I'm going to do something like this. I'm going to do 0 plus. Now, when I do 0 plus that, you can see that all the text, they are messed up already, but the only one that stays is what is the higher date, which is really what I need. So what I can then do is I can then use, if error and say if it's an error when you try to add 0 to it, right, then just return the same thing. Does that make sense? Okay, so it means that those that are numbers stored as text, will get converted, the text will remain the same, right? So you have that, and then you can take this down. Okay, and now you can see that we have, proper dates. So now this is a situation where you could easily use the let function. Why would you use the let function here? Because you can see that you have this text split portion repeated, right? You have it once here and you have it again. So it means it's the same computation. So why do you want Excel to do it 2 times? So what you could do here, this is how the let comes in. I could put the let, and I say let, I give it, just a name. I call it txt. So for the let, I say the first name is txt, and what does txt represent? I could make txt represent, everything here. Okay, so let me just put that here. Okay, so it means that txt represents the text split. So when I come in here into the if error part, instead of doing all of this here, I'm going to change this to txt, and then this last portion here, I'm going to change this to txt. Let's see. So that's for the if error. So we need one more bracket, and then that's it. Okay, so that makes sense. So now with this, it's kind of, well, maybe a little more readable. Well, if you want to make it a little more readable, you may want to start, using Alt-Enter to put them into different lines. But it's a simple example, but with a little twist on it, so that you can handle the numerics so that they show up as numbers. Okay, so let's go into the next one. This is a simple one. The only thing you need to know here is what the delimiter is, right? So when you look at this here, you can see that these 3 names are in one cell, right? They're in one cell. The 3 of them are in one cell. So you know that you're using a line feed character. That's really what this one is. So it's very simple. It's just to know what is the delimiter. That's all this example was there for. No other purpose. Okay, so I can select this. All right. And then I say column delimiter. So how do I put in an Alt-Enter into my column delimiter? 2 ways to do it, at least. You can put your double quote and you press Alt-Enter. That's going to create, that line feed character for you. Then you close that and you do close the bracket. That works. So that's one way to do it. The other way you can do it is also to use the ASCII, characters. That character 10 is the equivalent of pressing Alt-Enter. So what you could also have done is you do text split, you select this, and then you say character 10. Okay, and you have the same thing, right? So yeah, I had an X there somewhere, but that didn't work. But anyway, okay, so that's it. So with a simple text split, you can split, even those that are stored multiple rows in one cell into, the columns. Okay, so next one. This is an interesting one. I want us to look at this carefully. If you look at this, you can really see that you don't have a consistent delimiter across. Why do I say so? Between the employee ID and the name here, you can see there's a comma. And I think there's a space too. If I can see it well, it looks like there's a comma and there's a space. If you look at the name and the surname right here, you can see that there's just a comma. If you then look at the, what's it called? The name and the department, for example, there's a pipe. So you have 3 delimiters in this case, right? So now the good thing about TEXTSPLIT is that TEXTSPLIT allows you to use multiple delimiters, okay? So it's not a problem. If I didn't have TEXTSPLIT, I would have to do this in batches, right? I will break it first with a comma, break it with a comma space, and then break it with a pipe. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do TEXTSPLIT. So watch how this works. So when you get to the column delimiter, because you have multiple delimiters, you can then, open a curly bracket and you put all the possibilities in there. Okay, so I can put 1. I know there's a comma. I know there's maybe a comma space. I know there's a pipe, Okay, so let's say that's all. So this is what you do. When you have multiple, you just put them in curly brackets. Some people call them braces, right? I don't know if it's the Americans or the Britons, but curly bracket, braces, whatever you call them, put them in there. Okay, so, and you can see that this now works perfectly, right? So let's come down here. Sorry, I don't like dragging. That's my problem. And dynamic arrays are a little funny when you have spilled arrays. So you can see that here, what we've taken advantage of is that we had multiple delimiters, and we could use all of them straight up in TEXTSPLIT, and it gives us a very neat result. Okay, the same thing would have happened with the headers if we wanted to do that. And, that's really cool. So that's one thing you can do. Okay, so now, let's make it a little more interesting. This is a case where you have, multiple delimiters, for the columns, and you also have a row delimiter. So what's happening here, if you look at this example, I have everything in one cell, okay? So this is sitting in one cell. So now it means that I need to use the line feed character to break it in the rows, because between here and the next line, it is an alt enter that's in there. But now when you look at the columns, you can see that there's a comma and there's also a space. So how do we do this? It's simple. Same thing. Let's go again. So you do text split, you select the text. Now, when you look at the column delimiter, you can see that there's a part where we need a space. There's a part where we need a comma space. Okay, so let's see if that works. If I get all of them right, I should be fine. So for the column delimiter, let's say I need a comma. I can see that we also need like a comma and space. I can see that we also need maybe a space. Yeah. Okay. So those are all for the columns. Now for the row, because all of them are in one cell, so it means that your delimiter there is your character 10. So when I put a comma now, you can see it's asking me for the row delimiter. I can say character 10. Okay. And then I close the bracket. And you see what happens, right? So even though we had both row delimiters and column delimiters, you can do it in one formula. And even if you had multiple row, multiple column, just put them in curly brackets and you'll be fine. But now here's an interesting part here. You can see that for Clint Eastwood, which those of us who watch movies, we know him well, we can see that he doesn't have a department. So it shows with what an #NA. There's one argument of the text split that helps you to handle that, which is the pad width. So what that just does is that when you look at that, if you go, the last argument, so it says when I do the split and maybe I don't have as many entries as I need to have, what do you want me to show there? Okay, most people will choose, double quote, right? that's the most logical thing. Don't show anything, right? And you do that. Okay, and you can see that all the #NAs, are gone. Okay, so Celia, if there are any questions at any point, I would like to take them as we go on. You can always interrupt me. I'm okay with that. But I guess people may just be saying
there's questions yet.
Okay.
I'll let you know.
It means I'm still carrying everybody along. I've done so well today. Normally I would have lost people at this point. Okay, so all right. So now let's look at this in the context of what we normally like to do, which is the simple case where you want to get first name and last name. So now let's do this together. If we do text split here and we split this with a space, see what happens. Okay, one of the few times in my life where I drag. I hate to do it. Okay, so now what you realize is that some of them have 3 names, some of them have 2 names, but I need first names, and I need last names. I'm going to do this, with a combination of new school and old school, but I'll show you how to solve it with all the new functions that we have in here. So if I have this, you can see that this is spilled into 3 cells, 1, 2, 3. So it means that if I can use maybe an index function, I can pick the first one. That will give me first names, for example. So I could decide to do this. I could decide to do index, and then I take 1. This would give me, the first name, right? Let's take this all the way down. Okay, so now the tricky part now is the last name, right? Because in some cases here, you need to do index of 3, right? In this case here, you need to do index of 2 because you have a name and a surname. Here you have a middle name. So how do you get to do this? How do you know what it is you're supposed to do? What do we use with the index? What you could do is this. When you do the split, you could count how many entries it has. So for example, let's do this. If I do text split of this one and I take a space, I could put a count A around it, for example. I'm doing this the very hard way. I'll show you the very simple way. Just wait. Okay. So this gives me 3. If you take this down, you realize that for the others, some of them are 2. Okay. So it means that with this number here can feed, my index. Okay. So it means that if I then do index of the same text split, now somebody is seeing an opportunity to use let. Once you repeat a portion of a formula multiple times, start thinking of the let function. That's how I think about it. Okay. So this is just saying from that, pick that entry. Okay, so now this is Pakwa, and let's see, take this down. Okay, so you see this works, right? So for the guys with 3 names, it picks correctly. For the ones with 2 names, it also picks, correctly. I could have done this, together, using like a sequence function so that it spills, but okay, let's leave it at this for now, and let's assume Victor doesn't know anything better than this, because I wanted to use just TEXTSPLIT for this. So let's leave it at that, because I haven't said any other thing. So take this as Victor doesn't know how to solve it any better. So when I get to the other functions, I'll try and solve it in a different way. Okay, so let's look at the next ones. These are not the very interesting ones for me, and no offense to anybody. Text, I like the text functions, but I think some of the other ones, take, drop, WRAPCOLS, those are more interesting, but you know, it's not about me now. Okay, so let's look at the next set, which is text before and text after. Very simple things. Again, the description here works for both of them. You know, they have similar arguments. So essentially, once you have a delimiter, you can say, I want to get the text before, you know, this delimiter. But, you know, you could have, for example, here, let's say, we say Celia is the host of Toronto Excel Meetup. So I've given you an acronym, 10. If you don't like it, you can change it. So, so Celia is the host of, did I get the host right? I missed a T there. Okay, so now, if you use text before, this is how text before works. So watch this. So text before, I select the text. Let's assume my delimiter is a space. The instance number is saying here that there are multiple spaces, right? So which of them do you want me to get the text before? If I put 1, it means I need the text before the first space, okay? So the text before the first space is just going to be Celia, as you can see. Okay, if you do 2, the second space is here, so it's going to be Celia is, you know, and so on. And that's kind of how it works, you know, for text before and text after. The interesting part about it, which comes in very handy, is when you want to get maybe the last one, for example. So instead of counting and saying, how many spaces do I need, you know, maybe before the last space, the good thing about the index and the instance number for text before and text after is that they work in both directions. They work positively and negatively. So if I count and say this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it also works in the reverse direction as -1, -2, -3, -4, and -5. So it means if I say text before and I use -5, it will give me exactly the same thing. That's the implication. Let's see if that's correct, if I still know how to count. Okay, so you can see that whether you go from left to right or right to left, and this comes in very handy, you will see where it comes in. So whether you count from left to right, you know, you know how that works. So from the left, positive numbers, from the right, negative numbers. Okay, enough talk. Example. Do I want to talk about this? This is me going a little. Let me go into the examples first. I may come back and talk about this one. Okay, so now I'm now here, where I can now use another method to solve the first name and last name conundrum. Okay, so now we all know how this works. If I want to get the first name is the text before the first space. Makes sense, right? First space, the text before is your first name. So I can do text before. If at any point you think I'm too fast, let me know. Okay. If you don't put an instance number, it's going to default to 1. So this is fine. So we are good there. You could do it in 1. I think it's TEXTSPLIT that seems to have, you know, that messy behavior. So what I mean is that you could have actually done B4 to B20 so that it spills. Okay. So that works. Then for the last name now doesn't use a text before, uses a text after. It's the text after the last space. Now, somebody will get a little, oh, how many spaces do I need here? For this, I need 2. For this, I need 2. For the next, I need 1. So rather than being bothered with 1, 2, since it's the last one, that's where you use the negative indices. It's really easy to use. So in that case, I will do text after. I pick the text, I put a space, and for my instance number, instead I use -1, so that I don't need to bother if it is 2, 3, or if the person has 5 names, just pick from the right. So, and that's that. So you could also have done the same thing to have it spill, you know, and then. Okay, so that's another way. So at this point, assume that these are the only 2 ways I know how to do it. I will show you another way, but for now, make the assumption that Victor can only solve it with TEXTSPLIT, text before, and text after. But you see how that works later on. Okay, so another example. And why I'm sharing some of these, Really because before now, these things used to be very difficult to do. I'm sure Celia knows that. You know, some of these things you need to come up with some very interesting search, left, right, you know, substitute. It can really get interesting. So this is one I like a lot, which is where you want to get, you know, the name of the file name. Typically, to start this one, we use the cell function, right? And if I'm correct, this doesn't work online. Celia, that's correct, right? The cell function, yeah. Oh, okay, yeah.
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, the cell function does not work online.
Excel online, yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's tricky, yes. But well, just for people to know, sorry, too much information there, but, but it's good to know. Okay, so for most of us, for those of us who work more on the desktop version, anyway, you're in luck. So I'm trying to get, you know, what's it called, the name of this file. If you look at the top, you can see that it's called array and text functions. Okay, that's what it's called. So, but now, if you look at this, you can see that what I need is within these curly brackets, right? Okay, so what I'm going to just do is I'm going to put it here, you know, just so that I can have a line of sight to it. Okay, so what I'm trying to do is I need to get the text within these, you know, the square brackets. Okay, so how do I go about this? I could use text before and text after. So one thing I could say text before maybe the closing bracket. So let's start with that first. So I do text before and I select this. Okay, yeah, maybe I put it in there. It's the same thing as if I did cell or file name. And then I say text before, you know, and I use the square brackets, the closing square bracket as the delimiter. So see what happens? Okay, so now it gives me everything, you know, assuming this is where it's split, okay? So now that I have this, I can use text after to take everything after the opening bracket. So it's kind of a nested, you know, text before, text after. So I do text, text after, all right. And then in this one, I use the opening brackets. I hope this is clear to everybody. Okay, and then, you know, I kind of have that. So it's similar to in also getting the sheet name. This one is easy. You know, the sheet name is this here, the last thing here. So you're just going to do text after the closing bracket. That's what it is. So if you do text after and you pick this and you say your delimiter here is the closing bracket, that gives you the name of the sheet, okay, which is file name. So that's something you could do. Let me see. I think I created using the get.workbook function. Well, let me see this. Okay, yes, I created a list of all the sheets in this workbook. Okay, let me put a transpose around this just so that we can get to see what's going on there. Okay, yeah. So these are all the sheets in this workbook. If you wanted to get, you know, the individual sheet names, okay, overview, let, introduction, you could just also put, you know, like a text after. Layer that on top of this. Sorry to whoever is coughing.
So Victor, what is the sheet list there? Is it a custom function that you created, or is something that we don't know about, or I don't know about?
Okay. No. It wouldn't be something you don't know about. Okay, but let me show you because you asked. Okay, so for the sheet list, essentially, yeah. So this is sheet list. I just use the get.workbook,
macro,
which is really just the old school Excel for macro functions, yes. So okay. The get.workbook one would give you a list of all the sheets in the workbook, but it always appends the name of the workbook to it, which is what you notice there, right? So when you do, so I just did a transpose because it will speed it from left to right. So I just wanted to speed it vertically. So that's all that is. Okay. So you see it always appends the name of the workbook. So it's just a way to kind of break it out that way. Okay. So now.
Great, thank you.
No, you're welcome. Okay, so this is another interesting one, which is just combining the text after with like a sort. Now, if you wanted to sort these names, you know, sort them using the first name, that's very easy, right? You could just do a sort. But now, what if you wanted to sort it using the last name? What I mean by last name is here, you are sorting based on Bolt, Johnson, Green. So the B's based on the surname should come first, and so on and so forth. How would you do that? You know, you're just going to combine, you know, like a sort by with like, you know, a text after. So see how I do it. So I do a sort by, if I'm not sorting by first names, so I select this as my array. So what am I sorting by? I would use the text after to get the surnames, okay, which is the second names here. So I'm going to use text after, okay, and then I select the same text and I say the text after a space, okay. So automatically, because all of them here have Let's see, 2 names. Okay, I have 3 names here. So since I have 3 names, so that I don't get thrown off, I need to use an instance number of -1 just to make sure that I am picking, the last one. Okay, so when you do this and you close the brackets, so you can see, let's see, that didn't work. Okay, let's break it down first. Everything always works in practice until you get in front of an audience and everything refuses to work. Okay, so, all right, let me see. Oh, okay, I see what I'm doing wrong there. That's a space now. Okay, this is a space and -1. Okay, I think I use the comma as my delimiter instead. So I do a sort by and then end, F2 end, and then, okay, so that's what I wanted to do. So I wanted to sort, by last names. So, but what I did was kind of nest it. So the text after portion is giving me the last names, okay? And then I do the sort. So I'm not sorting by I'm sorting by, the surnames. And as you can see, the surnames go from B to C, E, and so on. Okay, so now, let's do this one. This one is going to be interesting. For those who use Power Query a lot, you can split by transition, like a transition between lower and upper, for example, or number and the character. So let's see. This one, does anybody have any idea how I'm going to do this with maybe text before or text after? Who has an idea? So that I don't have to be the one answering all the questions myself. So what I want to do in this case is, if you notice, there's no delimiter as per a space. What's happening is that the surname or the second name starts with an uppercase. That's all. So all I know is that it starts with an uppercase. So how can I maybe use the text before, text after, to get this? Okay, let me show you. So I do text before, and then I choose this as my text. Now, when it comes to the delimiter, what am I going to do as my delimiter? Because, well, this works at least for English. I don't know any other language. The good thing is that there are 26 alphabets, right? So because I can use multiple delimiters, I can actually create an array of A, B, C, D, E, F, to Z. But maybe it doesn't sound like, the way you want to do it. So what you could use is that you could use the char function. Some call it char function, some call it char. Let me show you what I mean. You know that if you do char of 65, that gives you capital A, right? And you go all the way down. So you could actually put a sequence into this, okay? And say, I know there are 26 of them because there are 26 alphabets, and I want you to start from 65, okay? Now this gives you A to Z. So this will be your delimiter in the sense that it is something from A to Z, it's something there. I don't know what it is, but it's one of them. So I do text before, I put this, and then for my delimiter, I do this. Now, the tricky part is the instance number. What instance are you interested in? If you do text before the first uppercase, the name starts with an uppercase, the first name, you. So if you do text before that, which is instance 1, you won't see anything. So let me show you that so that you see what I mean. Sorry, power just went out, but it will be back. Okay, so you can see you don't see anything because there's no text before the first U, right? So what you need to do is you need to use an instance number of 2, so that what you're saying is that the U here is the first one, the B here is the second one. So if you do text before instance number of 2, you can see that you're able to achieve a lower to upper, transition, and you have that. So once I have this, in this example, I can just do like a substitute and say in this text, anywhere it sees Usain, put nothing, I'll be left with the surname. And I could actually spell this, like dynamically, but yeah, sorry, I just wanted to show that Power Query can be what doing on Excel. I know people are going to say, "Oh, Victor, go and use Power Query." Okay, I get it. So, but it's okay. All right, so I hope you like that one. Anyway, if you want me to repeat it, if anybody had a problem with it, just let me know. I'll do it again. So this is just another interesting one. Victor,
where
you just get.
Victor, I have a problem. Can you repeat that? Can you repeat that too? Why is it 2? Can you please explain that again?
If you do, oh no, that's not a problem at all. So here,
sorry. So when you do the sequence, you have the sequence of the 26 alphabet letters in capital letter. And is text before case sensitive?
So there's an option to, make that either case sensitive
or
or
I
case
guess
insensitive.
when we are using char, we are making a point that we are referring
Yes,
to
exactly. The specific, but that's why I did the ones with the uppercase, right? So that it knows specifically now that I'm interested in upper, A to Z. Okay, so that's that part. So that part is clear, right?
Yes, I just don't
Okay.
understand why. So when we do the sequence, we have 26. Yes. How does it know which one to pick?
Okay, good. So
for the first name, the last name starts with a B, which is number 2 of the sequence. But second name, we don't have Johnson is not, J is not number 2 of the sequence. So I got lost there.
Okay, good. All right. So what I took advantage of here is the fact that, the text before, just like TEXTSPLIT, can work with multiple delimiters. If you look at the previous examples we did, there were some where we gave it a comma space. So essentially, you've given it A to Z. So meaning that any of them it finds, it's going to use them. So if for the Johnson now is seeing a capital J, it's not going to see A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. But once it sees J, it knows that, yes, it's one of them. So what I'm just doing essentially is, exactly, I know that it's one of the 26. So I just feed it with the 26. Then for the 2 at the end, if you do 1, you are saying you want to before, and the text starts with a capital letter. So if you choose 1, it means you are saying you want the text before that first character, which is the 0th character that doesn't exist. So if you do 1, it's going to be blank because there's nothing before the first, character of the text. So when you do the second one, that's when it gives you, the first name. So that's kind of, how it is. Yes.
Very good.
It messed with my head when I came up with it too, but but yeah, once you do it a few times, you get used to it. Okay, so this will be my last example here before I go into something else. So this one is just really to, be able to think through it and get out. What I want to do here is I want to get the weight. I know it's the number that follows the text LBS, but you have to be careful here because you have LBS, you have LB, so just know that when it's 1 pound, it's 1 pound. When it's pounds, it's an S. So how do I get the 23? So what I could do, first of all, is I can take the text before LB. So let me show you what that looks like so that everybody can get that. So I say text before, and then I use my delimiter, I put LB. But watch what's going to happen here. So it gives, all of this, right? So now, for me to get the 23, I just need text after. I need the text after a space, but which of the spaces? The last space. So because it's the last one, and you can see that it's in different positions across the text. So you don't need to start counting. Is it 1, 2, 3? Just use the -1, which always starts from the right. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to say text after, and my delimiter here is going to be a space. I'm going to use an instance number of -1. Okay, and I have that. But you are sure that this is text, right? So you need to do something like that, just because that's text. Am I still audible?
Perfectly, yes.
Oh, okay. Your video was slightly frozen. That was why I had to ask Celia.
Thank you.
Yeah, so sorry about that. Okay. So then for the density, you could do something like, for the density, you take all the text before gram per cm cube, for example. So I'm just showing you multiple examples so that it really sinks how it works. That's kind of how I learn to do these things. Once I do it so many times, it makes sense to me. So now this is done. You can see the 1.5 is here with the space. It's the same thing. Just do a text after and put your delimiter space and -1. Okay. So then I will go into, so that's that. And that's it. But yeah, just do, a mathematical operation, because once you use the text functions, you get text. All right. So now speeding up. Okay. So let's go into WRAPROWS and WRAPCOLS. I already mentioned this, that what this does basically is, take a row or column vector, meaning 1 row, 1 column, and you want to then split it into multiple rows and multiple columns. This is an interesting one, but sometimes it even gets to mess with my own head too, because sometimes I'm not sure, is it WRAPCOLS I need or is it WRAPROWS I need? So the text I've written here is not for you, it's actually for me, so that I can actually look at it and see. Because most times I get it wrong. I do the wrong one first, then I realize, oh, it should be the other one. But, sometimes these things take a while to internalize. So when you say WRAPCOLS, essentially what you're trying to do is you're trying to split this from, of course, this is a single column now in this case, to multiple columns. The question is not really about, you know, it's multiple columns. It's how does it do it? Does it go from here down this way, then it goes to the next column, or does it go from here, you know, first on the row before coming down? So those are the things you think about. So depending on your situation, you have to now know which of them you want to use. So WRAPCOLS goes from column to column, you know, then, or the same thing, I'll say it goes from top to bottom, then left to right. Here, it goes down, then before it goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down. What WRAPROWS does the reverse. Let me show you so you see what this is. So when I do WRAPCOLS and I select the array, so when you're using WRAPCOLS and it asks you for a wrap count, what it's saying is that because it's WRAPCOLS columns, what it's asking you is how many rows would I have in each column before I move to the next column. So in this case, if you look at the way I set this up, I need 4 rows. Okay, so I just do that. So you see how it went. For the WRAPCOLS, it went from what, top to bottom before it moved to the next column. Okay, so now the last argument of the WRAPCOLS allows you to, you know, do a pad width, meaning that when it cannot fill the array, because now this is 10 numbers, they are trying to fit it into like a 12, you know, I would say, yes, a 4x3 or 3x4 in this case. No, row by column, 4x3. You don't have enough elements. So what do you want to use instead? I could decide to use, you know, nothing, right? So those NAs disappear. So now let's look at WRAPROWS. I just do this simple one before I show you an example. So for the WRAPROWS, when you select this, how does WRAPROWS go? WRAPROWS goes from the rows first. So it goes on row 1. When it's done on row 1, it comes to row 2, and then it comes to row 3. So what it's asking you in this case for the WRAPROWS is how many columns do I have per row? So it's kind of the reverse. Okay, so if it's WRAPROWS, it's how many columns do I have before I move to the next row? So in this case, I have 4. So I say 4. Let me do the pad width already. It goes, you see, left to right, and then next row and next row. It's good to have this in mind so that sometimes you may get the function right, but even after saying all this and explaining it to you, I most likely will still get it wrong. But anyway, let's see. Okay, so now let's take an example. So you have this and you want to split it into, you know, 4 quarters. Maybe the first question I ask you is, which of them are we going to use? Is it WRAPROWS or WRAPCOLS? So what I ask myself is, how do I want the data to go? I think how I want the data to go will determine where I go. I know that if I need this in quarter 1 before going to quarter 2, it means I need to start from here. This is how I need to go. 1, 2, 3, you know, 4, 5, 6. So it means I'm going, you know, top to bottom before left to right. That's what I need. So in that case, I know I need WRAPCOLS. I know. And I think I'm right this time. Let's see. So these WRAPCOLS. So once you use WRAPCOLS, the next thing is how many rows do I need per, you know, as in per column? How many rows do I need per column? So it's 3 rows per column, okay? And you see that, you get that. So it goes from here down and then and so on. If you did it with WRAPROWS, you will see what will happen. So if you did WRAPROWS and then you selected this, first of all, so the wrap count here is saying how many columns do I have per row? This is a row, you need 4 columns. Okay, so you see what happens. This is not what you want, right? Because now January, February, March, April are going from left to right, but January, February, March are quarter 1. So you get what I mean. Okay, so that's not what you want. Okay, so yes. So this is another example. I used to do this with a combination of index, sequence, row, mod, a lot of very interesting things that used to make me feel like I was working very hard. But I'm working smart, but I was working hard, not smart. WRAPCOLS, WRAPROWS make me work smarter. So what I want to do in this case, look at this example. What I have is I have all of this in one column. And this is what I want, right? So it means that this first 5 is like a copy transpose, copy transpose, copy transpose. So the question is, again, which one am I going to use here? Is it WRAPROWS or is it WRAPCOLS? But one thing I know is that based on the output I see, you know, I need it to go from left to right first, meaning it needs to go on the rows first before the next row, before the next row. So this is WRAPROWS. And we will see if I'm right or wrong. I mean, I did a lot of practice before this session. Let's see if I'm right. So this is WRAPROWS. I can do Control Backspace, come back. So now it's WRAPROWS. So it means how many columns do I want per row? That's what the wrap count means here. So how many columns do I need? I know it's 5. Okay. So these are things that used to be very difficult with a lot of index and, very interesting things, but now so simple. So with that, you have the answer. All right. So now let me show you something else. We have breakout rooms in Teams, but I don't see it on this one here. Maybe Celia can see it, but we use that feature, right, in Zoom and in Teams. So what I'm just trying to simulate here is breakout rooms, right? Where you have 50 people in a meeting and you want to then distribute them into different rooms, right? And you want to do it randomly. So if you look at this example I have here, I've created it already that when I set, if I say 5, it creates 5 groups for me and it splits. Okay, sorry. Let me move this out of the table. Okay, so when I do maybe here 7, it creates 7 groups and it randomly assigns. You can see that if I do F9, it keeps, and if I say I want 10 groups, okay, so how do you achieve something like this? So what I'm trying to do is just to say breakout rooms and make it dynamic in such a way that when I change, the number of rooms in quotes, I get the number of people and I can always, kind of just calculate and make it randomized. So let me show you how I start this up. The first question is, how do you create a random list? I want this list to be randomized. How can I do that? The first thing I would do in my mind is I'll use rand array. Most of us maybe know the rand array function. So why? Because if I use rand array, it's going to generate random numbers for me that would hardly ever be the same. Okay, so if I use just regular integers, that's not going to work. You may have duplicates. If I use rand between, right, I may have duplicates. But rand array, I know I'm not going to have. So how many rows do I need? I want to know the number of rows I have in my data set. So maybe I'll use count select here. Okay. So now you can see that this is random, right? Okay. So if I sort my data using this, it means I would always have a randomly sorted list. That's the first thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a sort by. So I'm going to sort my names by these random numbers. So what it means is that as the random numbers change, my list also changes. Okay. So if I do F9 here, right? So you see, okay. So once I have this part done, then the next thing I need to do is now to do the wrap. Okay. So now, which one do I use? I want it to go into I know for sure that I need, this number of columns, whatever I have here, maybe 6. So I know that I need this number of columns. So in my mind is telling me, but I hope my mind is right this time. My mind is telling me that I need wrap rows. So I do wrap rows, and then I'll point to this cell as, what I will use to control the split. So let's see if this works. Okay. So now let me change this to 5. Okay, so you see I have 5 of them. I change this to 4. So the only thing I need to do here to make this complete is just to put, instead of having NA, I pad it with double quote, right? Okay, and so now I have a random list, that simulates kind of, the breakout rooms. But that's just a WRAPROWS WRAPCOLS. So let me jump. Take and drop. Don't mind this. I don't know. I can pay attention to these quotes. It's not like it means anything. I just decided to put it out. Like, if you can't take it, why not drop it? So just to use the take and drop. I mean, it's not like, I don't know what that means, but if you can't take it, well, drop it. So, okay. So what the take and drop just help you do basically is that, and it's simple. They should not be confused with choose calls and choose rows. Why? Because when you say choose calls and you say choose call 3, it means it's only giving you column 3. When you say take 3, it means it's taking from column 1 to column 3. The same thing with the rows. So understand the differences. If you say choose rows and you say row 3, for example, it means it's just giving you the 3rd row from whatever array you're giving it. If you say take 3 rows, it's giving you row 1, row 2, row 3. So let me show you. And they also work with positive and negative numbers. So look at this example, for example. Okay, I have Celia's name here. Yeah, Celia is very good in maths. So she has 89. I mean, she has a degree in maths, of course. So I wrote this well. I made sure that Celia and Grania had the highest scores. That is the only way I will make sure they call me back to Toronto Excel Meetup. Else, they throw me out. So, so now let's look at the take. If you do take and you say this is your array, for example. So these are used for, like, resizing. So if I say I want only 3 rows, see what it does. It gives me the first 3 rows, right? So Celia, Oz, and Mike. And Mike is also on the call too. You know, so it gives me the first 3. If I wanted the bottom 3 from that array, it works with the negative numbers too. So you could also use -1, -2, -3, kind of like the same thing that happens with the text before and text after. So I could do minus. So if you see minus, see what happens. The minus goes from what? The bottom. It takes the bottom. So Tia, Claudia. I don't know if Claudia is on the call, you know. Not sure why the column was also updating in the, okay, well, I'll look at that after. So, okay, so the take and drop work with both positive and negative integers, depending on what it is you want. So I wanted to just do a few examples here. Then I'll show you something using it for like a dynamic chart. So what I want to do in this first example is I want to have the names of the students, and I want to take the first 2 subjects, meaning I want student, maths, and English. So what does that mean in simple terms? So it means I'm doing take, and I need, if this is my array, I don't need rows here, I need columns. It means I need the first 3 columns. So I skip the rows argument and I do 3, and you see that it automatically extracts for me what I need. So it gives me the first 3. Now, so that you understand how take and drop works, kind of working in the reverse. If I need the first 3 out of 5, what does that mean? It means I'm either taking the first 3 or I'm dropping the last 2. Does that make sense, right? So if I either take the first 3 or I drop the last 2, I should arrive at the same answer. So it means I could have used drop. Okay, so I do drop, I select here, and then I say, how many columns am I dropping? Now, this is where you have to be careful. If you say drop 2, what is it going to do? It's going to drop the first 2, which is student and maths. That's what it's going to do. So you see it drops the first 2. But what you really want to do is you want to drop what? The last 2. So that's where you use the negative indices. So you're not going to use drop of 2. You're going to use drop of what? -2. Okay, and so drop of -2 means drop 2 from the right, and you're left with the 3 on the left. Okay, so now just to bring in another function at this point, which some of you may have heard about, which is the HStack. What's HStack really? HStack is just to stack things horizontally. VStack, stack things vertically. So look at this example. What I want to do is I want the names and the last 2 subjects, meaning I want this and I want these 2. Now I can't use take and drop at once because those ones always require, you know, like continuous, you know, columns or rows. So what I'll do is I'll do it in 2 pieces. The first thing is I know I need the name, so I can do take and I take the first column. So let me come here and do, oh, sorry, column. I need to shift by 1. This is the first column. For the last 2, I could do take and -2, you know, something like that. There are so many ways. My brain is thinking in so many directions right now. So you can do it anyhow. So that's it. That's what you need. But if you want to then put it all in one, you can just, this is 2 different arrays now. This is one array, this is one array. Because if I delete this, the other one is still left. But this is where like an HStack comes in, right? So you can say, put an HStack. This is your first array. That's, you want to stack them horizontally. And then your second array is whatever you had that generated the physics and chemistry, which I can easily reproduce as take, you know, these 2. And I think it was -2 I used. Right. Okay. And then, okay. So speed error because of these guys here. So now you have it in 1. Okay. So maybe at this point, I also mentioned, you know, the choose calls. Like I said, for the choose calls, it means you want to choose specific columns. But the good thing about the choose calls is that you don't have to just choose one column. You can choose multiple columns. So look at this. I could have done choose calls. I select the array, but I have my issues with choose calls because now I need to start counting. So which columns do I need? I need column 1, I need column 4, I need column 5. So it means I will have to do something like this. I open curly brackets and say, I need column 1. I need column 4, I need column 5. You get the same answer. Okay, so that's kind of how it works. But that's not the interesting part. So let me show you something here using take and drop with, you know. Oh, okay, so Mike is saying I solved the problem. Well, I didn't know I was going to be able to solve any problem for Mike, but that's like that's like an achievement. All right, so let me show you this, kind of just using it to simulate like some dynamic charts. So what I have here is data that runs from left to right, you know, names and you know, the months. So what I want to be able to do is that when somebody selects a month in this drop down here, when you select a month in this drop down, I want it to pick you know, from salesperson all the way just to that month. So what I mean is that if the person picks here April, what I want to have is this array. I want to have this array. If the person picks, you know, June, I want to have all the way, you know, to June. Okay, so that's kind of how it works. Let me try and remember when we started. Oh, so this is 11:30, right? Is that? That's 5:30.
Sorry. Yeah, you're good. So we are about 1 hour now, and we always allocate 90 minutes in total. So
okay, have I been talking that long?
I didn't notice it. Thank you for.
I didn't notice it myself.
For me,
but I know, yes, of course, you had 10
minutes.
minutes introduction, and then of course I started like at 10:40. Oh wow, I talk a lot. Okay, so
keep going.
All right, let's keep going. Let's keep going.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I want to do here is, you know, when I select this here, I want to just pick the array up to that month. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use, you know, the take. I can use the take function and say take. I pick this entire array. But now I need to know how many columns I need. So how do I get the number of columns I need? It's simple. I can use a match. So if I have June here, it's for it to match and know that June is this particular column, okay? And if it knows that, then the take can take everything from the left all the way to that. So what I can do here is, because people are averse now to match, they like XMATCH, maybe I just use XMATCH to appeal to the audience. So I can do an XMATCH and say match whatever you have here, you know, and I take this as the array. The good thing about this, I'm taking including the salesperson, so I don't need to do a +1, right? You know, I can put a comma 0, close. Let's see. Okay, so now this goes all the way to June. If I select and change this to, say, September, okay, this expands, you know, and so you're kind of using take and drop for, you know, dynamic arrays. All right, so what I would like to do, you know, on this one is, you know, kind of maybe do a chart around this so that you kind of see how it works. But every time I did this on my Office system, it was actually crashing Excel. So I'm not really sure why, you know. So, okay, just because I said that, let me save first before I do what I want to do. But it hasn't crashed this one. Okay, so let's go to a chart so that you just kind of see it working. Let's do a column chart. Maybe I do a stacked column chart. I want something, okay, yeah. The ugliest of charts is what I want. You know, I'm not teaching you charting. So I have this. Okay, so but now you want a situation where this chart responds, you know, to what it is that you have in this drop down. Okay, it's already working. Why is it working? It's already working, right? That's how it works. Anyway, so, you know, so you're just using the take here, you know, to create like, you know, a dynamic range pretty much. And but you will see that it's not exactly foolproof. Let me see, do December, then you see that what I did, you know, okay. But yeah, I think so. That's fine. So I just
current Victor. Are you using the current channel?
Yes,
I'm insiders.
No, I'm using the insider.
I think this feature with dynamic charts, charts responding to dynamic arrays is quite new, but I'm not sure in which channel it is available.
I don't think it's in the current channel. I think it's in the insider channel. Yeah, but I'm using the insider anyway. Yeah, this is the insider.
Yeah, it was announced relatively recently. That's
yes. Yeah.
So if people don't have it yet, it will come, hopefully.
It will come to you. So yes, that's how it works now. So you can just select, you know, and it responds accordingly. But I'm just trying to use take and drop for the dynamic arrays instead of maybe using like the index and the offset and XLOOKUP like I like to do. Okay, so yeah, let's keep going. So now another function that I want to get to the one I want to get to, VSTACK. Okay, so I will get there. So TOCOL. I'm not trying to touch the 14 of them. I just picked random ones, and you know. So TOCOL is a very nice example. Why I like this, and Celia, I think you may be able to help with this. You know, you're the Power Query expert. You know, like how easy is it? Your reaction is like, are you joking? But come on, Celia. But really, how easy is it to stack, you know, multiple columns into one? Really, even in Power Query.
I don't think it's, I think we need to do a couple of steps. I think it's much easier probably with the functions now. There's Alejandra there in the call as well. So maybe but I think we need to create, use like an index column and think of how many columns or rows we want to consider in each group, and then maybe transpose. I don't know. I would have to think, but I've done that a couple of times.
The kind of thing Alejandra likes, yeah. The truth of the matter, I wasn't trying to put you on the spot because I don't have the answer.
But it is one of the. It's a common problem, and it's not very easy to. It's not a one-step thing. It takes a couple of steps.
Alejandra is responding. She's like, "Oops." Okay, so so just to make a point here that, so TOCOL makes it very easy. So what TOCOL does is that it takes multiple columns and, it stacks it up into one, and you really don't have to think about it. So what I do here is just do TOCOL, I select the entire array, and you can see that automatically stacks everything into one. But now I think I just put a conditional formatting so that I could see the blanks. So one good thing is that this one part people don't get to is that there's an argument there. If you go to the next argument, the second argument, which is ignore, you can see that you can ignore blanks, ignore errors. So here, if you don't want it to include these blanks, which you don't want it to include, you just do the ignore blanks. And now you can see that this is different now. I don't have those blanks anymore. If I do a Control Z, you can see initially I had them, but just with that single argument, that changes. The other thing you need to be aware of is how it gets its, how it stacks the data up. If you look at this well, you can see that it's stacking it up by going from left to right. So it picks this first, picks this. That's the default. Okay, so like scanning by row. So it goes through the rows before it comes to the next one. But you can change that if you wanted it to go through group 1 first, before group 2, before group 3. So what you could do is that instead of doing this, you go to the last option, which is scan. Now you can see that the default is scanning by rows. Okay, so then you do scan by column. Okay, and then it changes how it stacks. So you can see now it takes group 1 first. So you can see that these names here are aligned with this. They stack on the second and so on. Okay, so yeah, that's that. Okay, I think I already mentioned, choose calls, in some way. So let me skip choose calls for now because I want to get to my VStack, which is, let me see, what do I have after VStack? Yeah, once I do VStack, I think I'm in a good place. I like VStack. Okay, so oh yeah, this is the complicated VStack. No, let's leave that one first. No, you're in the wrong place. What are you doing here? Okay, no, you're right. All right, so let me show you VStack first of all. So VStack is really simple, which is just stacking, arrays up vertically. It says zeros because the formatting. Yes, yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So for VStack is just vertical stack, right? So you just take, bunch of arrays. Well, whether you think of them as arrays or ranges, you can stack them up together. So now I can do here. Look at these 3 tables. If I wanted to stack these 3 tables up, I could use VStack. So this is easy, it's very easy. Just pick the table. So you can use this diagonal. That is table 1. You use again, you point to, sometimes getting that diagonal is tricky, to select the whole table 2. And then, you get this one 3. Okay, so now what this does is that it takes those 3 and it stacks them up all together. So you now have one table which, comes from, all of that together. So that's, one way this can work. So that's the simple case. So let me show you a few cool things that you can do with VStack. So VStack also supports like 3D references. When we do 3D formulas where you kind of select from multiple sheets all at once and maybe you sum across all of them. So let me show you an example of that. So look at this data here. I have a few salespersons. There's Tokyo, there's London, there's Abuja, and there's Cape Town. And now I want to stack the 4 of them up together. Why this trick is good is because I'm combining something I knew before with VStack, is that instead of selecting each of them one after the other, you can just take advantage of the fact that, well, all the sheets are together. I mean, I positioned it that way so that the example will work anyway. So, what I want to do is I want to stack it all up, but I don't want to start selecting the range here, the range here, the range here, and so on. So what I do here, watch this. So I do VStack, okay, and then I select Tokyo first. And then I can hold a shift. I hold my shift down, I select Cape Town, and then I select the range. So what you are doing essentially is that you are saying for those sheets in the selection, it's going to pick that same range for all of them. And you close the bracket. So that's the fastest way in this kind of scenario, of course. So, and you can see that everything is stacked up together, okay, all at once. So now you notice that there's some rows that maybe have, what's it called, like zeros or blanks in this case, as you see with the stacking. So you can say you want to filter them out. So that's nesting something on top of it. So if I want to filter, I could decide. So think about this very well. All of them have names, but maybe they don't have something in the second column. So the ones that don't have anything in the second columns are what I'm interested in. So how do I do this? I can do a filter on top of this, but I want to show you that it's important here to maybe use a let function, okay? Because you will repeat this a couple of times. You want to say filter on this VStack where the same VStack equals to something. So what I can do is this. I can just say let my range RNG variable represent this whole VStack, okay? So it means anywhere I see RNG, it means this VStack. What do? I filter on the range. Watch this. It's a little messy, but not too messy. I filter the range. Now, what is my criteria? My criteria is wherever the second column is blank. Or maybe in this case, I would say, sorry, what I want to get rid of those ones that are zeros. Or I can say wherever my second column is not blank or is not zero. So how do I do that? Because don't forget that this your VStack is multiple columns. It's not one column. So I can use my CHOOSECOLS in there and say, put CHOOSECOLS on top of that range, and I'm saying 2. What am I trying to do here? I'm trying to get the second column here, right? Because I know the first column will always have names. So I'm saying the second column. So I'm using a filter, and my criteria is, when you choose the second column out of that, array where this is not blank, okay? So that should close the filter. This should close the let. Let's see if I'm lucky. Okay, and you can see that those guys are gone. So anyone that doesn't have maybe data from the second column disappears. So if you just go back here and you put something here, you should see that appear. Now, yeah, you can see that one appears here. So, that's kind of VStack with filter with CHOOSECOLS at the same time. Now, let me come here. Let me do a VStack with VLOOKUP. So you can do VStack with VLOOKUP. That's an interesting one. Your second argument of your VLOOKUP is a table array. I know people don't like to hear VLOOKUP, but well, let's just bear with me tonight. so now take an example here, where you have a name. This name could come from any of these tables. So you really don't know which table it is. This could have been, I'm only trying to show you that some of these things were much more difficult in the past, right? They are much easier with the dynamic arrays and with these functions. That's all I'm saying. Not that don't go and use, there are a lot of things here that Power Query would solve without even blinking, right? But, some of us just like to stay on the worksheet. So we stay here. So now look at this. I want to find this name and return maybe its location, for example. Sanjay is not in the first table. It's not, maybe he's in one of the tables. So what am I going to do? I'm going to do a VLOOKUP. Look at this. I can do a VLOOKUP and VStack works here. I choose Sanjay. For my table array, I would stack up those 3 tables in the table array. So meaning that internally, it's having an appended table, that has everything. So I'll do VStack, okay? And then I select, that's 1. I select 2. Not that it matters the direction now, because since it's stacking them anyway, so they would all be there. So now that's my table array. And I need column 2, which is my location. Okay, let's assume that that's that. And I do 0. Okay. And you can see that even though Sanjay is not found in this first table, Sanjay is somewhere here, but Sanjay is doubling, and the same thing would have worked. So VLOOKUP also works with VStack. You could also have used, XLOOKUP, with the VStack. That would also work. Okay, yes, I'm looking at the time. So let me do one last example. Oh, okay, well, there's something here, just for fun. This was just for fun. I just decided to use the image function, right? Because an image function is really cool because you cannot have images in cells, So I was trying to create a scenario where I want to filter this table, where the country is USA, and I want to choose only the name column and the image column. So let me show you what I mean. So this starts off with a filter. Look at this. So do a filter. Watch this, everybody. So I want to filter this whole data. Okay, do control backspace. I want to filter this where the country, this is country, where the country is equal to USA. And that's the beautiful thing about this image function. The images actually sit in those cells. So look at this. Okay, So now you can see this is the data. But now I really don't need all of them. I need just the first column and say the last column. So how do I do that? I can just put choose calls around this. Okay. Now, what columns do I need? I need column 1. Somebody's trying to count. How many times do I need, how many columns before I get to the image? You don't need to count. Choose calls can work with the negative argument, which is the fact that you can use -1 from the right side. So you can do -1, you know, and now you can see that I have both the names and the images. And if I wanted it to just be like name on top of image, I just transpose it, you know, just because I want to overdo things, you know. And then I have what I want. So, and it's all working with, you know, the functions, choose calls, you know. What else did I use there? Okay, essentially choose calls. Yes, it's the others are things you are used to filter and transpose. Okay, the last example is complex, so I may just, you know, I may just leave it. So Celia, we're supposed to end this whole thing by 12, right? That's in the next 10 minutes. Is that correct?
Yes, we have 10 minutes. That's okay. But I'm not too rigorous with the time. I mean, it's you. You are the one giving your time. So
if it's about me, we can go until tomorrow. You know. Okay, so just but I pretty much would be done. So maybe I just do one example, but I think I actually did cover quite, you know, much more than I thought I would. This one is going to be complex, but I may just want to show you just for the benefit of some people. I don't know if it's a good thing to end the session with a complex example, but well, well, I'll take my chances with that. Sorry, let me locate that sheet. Okay, yeah, this is this. Okay, so let me show you. I'm trying to do again. This is Victor always trying to do Power Query in Excel. The question is it too much for 1 hour? Next time we require 2 hours. Okay, so all right. But you know, the good thing about these sessions is once it's recorded, I'm always happy because you can always go back. You know, like I missed Alejandra's session for some reason. I was so sleepy on that day, you know, so but the good thing is I watched it. I just went back and Celia will have it up, I'm showing. Maybe 1 or 2 days. I'm trying to put her on the spot so that she does it. You know, so. So okay, so now this example, let me explain what I want to do in this example. You know, sometimes you write a VSTACK and you want to list all the tables in there. And if anything changes for some reason, you have to go and start changing, you know, and imagine your VSTACK appears multiple times in your formula, for example. You have to start deleting a particular table that you don't need. So what I'm trying to do here is I have a list of tables and I want to see if I can stack up the arrays based on this list, meaning that when this list maybe shrinks to become 2 or increases to become 5, my VSTACK, you know, it's going to work. Okay, so that's what I want to do here. So this is like a list of tables. So if you look at these sheets, I just created on the sides, I created tables, table equivalents for all of them. So it's just the same data. This is all you're going to see. I'm not going to add in the Toronto first because you have Celia's name and all that. So that at least when I add it, you will see that her name is there and you know that it's working. Okay, so so back here. So how am I going to do that? Let me show you. I'm going to use, this is where I know I mentioned in the text leading up to this, I said a lambda may just come in. So I feel it would be unfair not to throw in a lambda before I leave, you know, just for the fun of it. Okay, I know people hear lambdas and they're like, oh, Victor, why? So look at this. So this is 1, 2, 3 to 10. So if you wanted to do like, you know, a running total, you know what a running total is, right? So here, you know, this is like saying 1 on this, when you get to this row, it's going to be 1 plus 2, 1 plus 3, 1 plus 4. You know, you can do that with a formula, but if you wanted to have it in one array, typically, you know, you would use like a scan function because a scan would give you all those intermediate values. Let me show you how this works. It's simple. So if you do this and say equals to say scan, I'll show you where I'm getting at. And you say the initial value. The initial value is, yeah, like what you want to start up with. And then that number would then be used for the operations. I could say 0. The array are the numbers that I'm interested in, all these guys. Then when you get into the function, which is the lambda part of it, you need 2 arguments. The first one technically will start up, this A will start up by having this 0 value. Then you have B. B would be every value in here. So this is what's going to happen. If you say your calculation is A plus B, let's look at this, for example. A will start up as 0. Your B are all these numbers in this range. So what it's going to do is that it's going to start up with 0 plus 1, which is 1. When it comes the next time, it's going to be 1 plus 2, then 2 plus 3, and so on. It's really simple. This is really simple. Just watch this. Okay. So now you can see that we have a running total. If I decided to start up this with 10, for example, it means that the first number will be 10 plus 1, and so on and so forth. Now, I'm going somewhere. I'm just trying to lay the background. So this is the example I will end with, obviously, because it's complex, but well, I felt I should do it. So now, if you do scan is showing you all those intermediate values, right? But if you change that scan to reduce would only give you the final value. Reduce doesn't take the intermediate value. So if I just change this scan, and I think Owen showed this, Owen Price on your maybe 2 months ago or something. If I change this to reduce, it's like it's not interested in the intermediate values, it's taking just the last value. So you can see that it gives me that 65. But when I did scan is showing me like all the steps. So what I'm going to do, think about this in the context of stacking tables together. The first time you go, you have only table 1. The next time you go, it's going to stack table 1 and what? Table 2. The next time you go, it's going to stack what? Table 1, 2, 3. At the end of the day, you don't need any of this. If you have 4 tables, what you're interested in is just what? The last one, right? Because the last one contains everything every other one contains. So you don't really need the first 3. So it means that if you use a reduce function, it can give you this last number, which is exactly what the reduce does here when it gives you 65. So it's like taking all the tables. Internally, Excel is stacking them, and it has those intermediate values, but you're not interested in the intermediate values. You're interested in the final value when it stacks it up. So that's kind of what we're going to do. So yeah, even me explaining it is like, oh, what is this? So now let me do it anyway. I'm already here, so I'm going to bite the bullet. Okay, so I start off with a reduce function. The initial value, what I want is the initial value, again, in this case, and you'll see where the other functions will come in. The initial value is, I want to take the initial value as the first table, which is table Tokyo, or whatever table is there. That will be my first value, then every other thing will be stacked on that. So how do I get the first value that I have in this table? I can use the take function, right? So I will say take this, comma 1. This would give me that Tokyo. But now, how do I get the data inside of it? I need to use the indirect function. Well, let me take this out so that everybody can see what I'm doing. So let's use indirect, which is a function people don't like. So look at this. If you did indirect of that, because that's the table name, if you did indirect of this, this is what you will see. Okay, so essentially, that's my first value. So now, let's go back in here. So I do the reduce now. You can see that's the first value. Now the array would be, I want to then have all the other tables. But now, if I've taken the first one, I don't need to take it again. It means that for me to get the others, I need to drop the first one. So my array would be to drop the first one. So what does that mean? It means that this first one is the Tokyo. By the time you drop 1, it means you're left with what? London, Abuja, and Cape Town. That's kind of how it works. It's very simple. Okay, so now that's the end of that part. You go into the Lambda. What do you want to do? You take 2 variables. What's the first thing? You want to stack them up together. So you bring in a VSTACK. Okay, so what's the first thing? A represents like the first value, which is the first table. So you take A, meaning this table you're kind of seeing here. And then you want it to stack it up with every other thing it sees. When it sees TBL London, stack it. When it sees Abuja, stack it. When it sees Cape Town, stack it. But you need the indirect for the other ones because you've not put an indirect. So you do indirect of B. That's kind of what it is. Let's see if this works. The brackets are the number of things. Okay. And now we have everything stacked up. If I add in this table and I add here and I add so TBL Toronto, I think they said the T, second T is silent, it's Toronto, not Toronto. So I think, so, Celia is like, well, doesn't matter. So once you add Toronto here, you can see that now you have the names Celia, Grania, and all, which are coming from, that. So this is like some, Power Query in Excel. So let me drag this up. If I take this to just 2, you can see my range is just 2 of them. And that's kind of how that works. So let me see if it's possible to end with a very simple example that brings everybody back to earth. Okay, so okay, let me just show this. Yeah, this is something I think a lot of videos on YouTube have shown, but I think I'll just do this and I'll end with this. Okay, the expand function. So the expand function is what it says it is, you know. So the expand function is what it says it is, which is the fact that it takes an array and it kind of, you know, stretches it out. So look at what I want to do in this case. And there are scenarios where you need to do this, but this will form a part of a more complex formula. So look at this. You can do all, you used to do this with all them index and the rest of them, but I just wanted to show you with expand. And there are videos on YouTube because I had done it before and I'd watched it too. So what I want to do here is I want to create this multiple times. So meaning that I want to take this and take it like, I want to stack it on itself like 4 or 5 times. How does expand work? Let's do a simple example first so that we kind of see. If you take expand and you take this array, let's say you take this array and you say you want to expand it to say 8 rows. There are how many rows here? 5, and you say 8 rows. It's just going to create a bigger array than what you have, and your column and rows should be bigger than what you have. If not, it's going to drop an error. So now, when you do this, it says, "Oh, okay, I've created this, but what do you want me to do there?"
To be because these are all like 608 to 700.
Okay, so it's back there. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Looks like we need to mute someone.
It's done. Thank you.
Okay, fine. All right. Yes, it's the easiest way is to mute all that instead of looking for the culprit. So when you do, this, it just expands it, and then you can say pad with, and I can say, oh, I want to pad with Celia, for example. So what it means is that those extra 3, you know, would have. Oops. Okay, what did I do wrong now? Oh, sorry. Yeah.
You put my name in there.
Columns.
That's the problem.
No, I think I put your name in columns instead of in the pad with. That's all right. So that's the idea. It's like making an array, you know, expand bigger than whatever it's supposed to be. So what I want to do here is create an example where you have these names and you create them multiple times. So let's start off. Just look at how this works. So you do expand. So you take this, and let's assume you want to expand it to 4 times. So we do like 4, let's say we do 4 columns here. So this is what happens. Okay. So you can see, because it has only 1 column, it can't fill the others. So now you can use an if NA, because it's like saying if it's an error, what do you want to do? I can say if it's an error, I want it to remain the same. Just an interesting trick, really. Okay. So now you see it. It's just saying if it's an error, repeat the same thing. So now that I have this, I can come here. I just decided to do it separately, and I can use TOCOL, which is take all of them and stack them up together. Okay, so now and then, right? But the only thing I'm missing here is that I'm not getting the order right. Instead of going James, 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 I needed to go James, John, Jack, Jill. So what do? I mentioned that earlier, that I need to change the way it scans. So it needs to scan, you know, by column instead of by row. Okay, and then I have it that way. So you can use that expand and TOCOL to, you know, create this. And there are sometimes you need to do this as part of a bigger formula, but I just thought to show that. So I think for me, good place, you know, to leave it so that maybe we can answer questions and all that. So thank you very much. I hope it was worth your time.
Thank you to Victor. Absolutely. These new functions are just amazing, and we just need to get used to having them around and remember to use them, because the more we use them, the more uses for them we discover, and different scenarios. So it's just amazing. I love it.
Oh yeah, and so, you also realize that you can. Oh, sorry, I was going to say you can also realize that there are sometimes there are multiple ways to solving the same thing. As in, there are problems where maybe choose calls can work, take can also work. And you know, sometimes the question comes, which of them are we supposed to use? But I think the scenario will drive it. So, you know, if you know most of them or all of them, then depending on the situation, feel free, you know, bring whichever one you want out of your bag of tricks. Okay, so
absolutely.
That's what I wanted to say.
So we have a lot of thank yous and wows over there in the chat.
Okay, so that's my sister. I think I mentioned she's here. So Faith Momoh.
I see her.
Yeah.
Welcome, Faith.
Yeah.
Here we are neighbors.
If she has a video on, that would be good. I don't know if she's.
Yes, anyone feel free.
She's with you in Toronto.
Everyone feel free to turn on.
Oh, okay, that's
Hi,
Faith.
nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you. Well done, Victor.
Right?
Absolutely.
So that's family in Toronto. So Celia, you have if you have an Excel problem, you can't get me, you can get her. You know.
Oh no, trust me, I would not do it justice. Yeah.
How can people find you, Victor? Do you want to share how people can connect with you?
Oh, okay. Yes, absolutely. I'm supposed to have something, but for some strange reason, well, okay. So Twitter. Okay, let me make it easy. So okay, somebody has put that's my YouTube. Thanks, Grania. Yeah, Grania is my, you know, she always has my back.
Yes.
let me get my cursor. My cursor is. Yeah, I know she got yours. So on Twitter it is at VicMoExcel. Okay, I think, but the YouTube is really where you get me more. Yeah, so that's Twitter. So I think she's already put the YouTube. On LinkedIn, let me see if I can pull up my LinkedIn profile. I think Celia probably even has that one. Sorry, I'm not sharing this screen, so I can walk behind the scenes. Sorry, I should always have this, but I think I was more concerned with my reduce function. Yeah.
I can pull it up, the slide we have here for you, and share it.
Let me see if that's okay.
Where is it?
I don't know if. Okay, you can try with yours if it's not different. Yeah, but yes, YouTube. You know, again, subscribe. Excel Moments. That's my channel. It has an S. You know, MOMENTS. So. Yes, then, but I mainly, you know, you find me on Twitter, you find me on YouTube, then you find me on LinkedIn, you know. So you can always send a message to me on LinkedIn, you know, send a message to me on Twitter, you know. I'll be more than happy to, you know, have discussions with you. I really, you know, enjoyed these sessions. I would try and, I think I should have access to the chats after now. I always like after the session to go through and sit through and read through the chats, because most times I can't do that when I'm presenting sometimes, you know, because I know there'll be a lot of maybe interesting ideas, questions, you know, some things I haven't even thought about, you know, so I always like to do that, you know.
Grania, did you notice any question that was not answered? There was one with that example.
I had one from Henry. At least one from Henry. What if your source data, excuse me, what if your source data has a formula? Will the output be in text and number values instead? Presumably the output values of the source data formulas have changed. Now that was at 5:36, so early in your presentation.
Okay, so I think he must have been referring to.
Mark, which part it was?
I think he must have been referring to the VSTACK, you know, maybe where VSTACK was bringing in, TOCOL, maybe the TOCOL, where TOCOL was bringing in zeros, you know, instead of the blanks. That's my suspicion, you know. Yeah, that's why is it bringing zeros instead of the blank? So I think, okay, I may need to read that comment.
No, it was earlier than that.
It was earlier than that.
Having to do with
okay, if he's able to speak and put some context, that would be good, but that's fine.
Yeah.
Oh yes, input output general question. Okay, yeah. Let's see that. I mean, we have the TOCOL here. Yeah, sometimes these things are tricky, but because in my mind I know that, well, from the source is blank. So you notice that in my filter, for example, when I did the VSTACK, I wasn't filtering.
You're not sharing, Victor. I don't know if you want to share.
Oh, okay. I stopped sharing.
Because I shared the slide, and so okay. I took you off.
You knocked me off. Yeah, I was like, who did that? Who did that to me? You know. So, okay, so I was trying to say that. Let me see where that VSTACK. Yes, okay. I was saying here when I did this, I did not blank, right? Even though ideally, you know, somebody may have be expecting me to do maybe not zero. Right, but I know that from the source, it's actually blank. So I think his question is, let me see, maybe if I had a formula on the other side. Okay, I need to test that out, you know, on this side, because this cells, so how are these cells formatted? General. Okay, let's see if we put them as text just for the fun of it. Where's the VSTACK? Okay, this still show up here. This still show up here as 0. Let's see. which is what I expected anyway. I think it's more a VSTACK thing than anything else. Just the same way TEXTSPLIT will just convert all your stuff to text, irrespective of whether they're numbers or not. So I think that's what's going on, really.
Yeah, in general, when we refer to blank cells in a formula, if that's the cell is empty, we get 0 in most cases.
Yeah.
Don't we? Yeah. So.
Yes. So, but I know it's a blank, so I use that. So that's why I didn't use not equals to 0. I used not equals to blank. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's tricky anyway, because it could be a case where 0 is actually a valid value, so one has to kind of watch that.
Yeah.
I mean, if 0 is a correct value there, then what do you do, when you're seeing 0 and you're seeing blanks, so yeah, but you're right, typically we get to see it as zeros,
Any other questions? There was one about when you use that reduce with lambda. If we just used VSTACK with indirect and then point to all the list of the tables, maybe that would work too.
Okay, so you're referring to this here?
Yes, so if we just do VSTACK and then indirect that column, would that work?
Oh, okay. I mean, I expect it not to work. I mean, but that would be nice to see, right? So what I know would work is if you start using the indirect one after the other, right? Which is what I'm trying not to do. What I mean is that this would work, obviously, if I did VSTACK and I first did indirect and maybe this one. Okay, let's see. And I did indirect the next one, which is kind of let me see, that was B5. Okay, it's fine if it takes.
It's because you're in the same line, yeah.
Yes, of course. So you could do so you did that like an art. So now you can so you can see here that this would work. But what I was trying to avoid is having to have nested indirects, like so many of them, because it means I have to pick each of them. And if this table had say 20 tables, I needed to do 20 VSTACKs. But with what I've done, it's just really looking at that table lists, right? And the first thing is I pick the first one. So that first one is like, okay, this is where I'm starting. And then I want you to then start aggregating all of them. So I use the take to get the first one. I use the drop so that I don't have a repetition. If I don't use drop here, what happens is that it will stack table 1 2 times. I mean, Tokyo, because there's Tokyo already, and then it will stack with Tokyo again. But by dropping it, then, so it's just a more maybe compact way rather than writing. And because you never really know how many you will have, right? So if you write the formula the way I've written it here, you'll get into trouble, right? But again, do this in Power Query. So Celia and Alejandra have the points for this one. So
yeah, in Power Query you go append. Yeah.
Sorry, we have Victor Yematan asking, how can we do open referencing, for example, A1 colon A without using tables, just like the way array works in Google Sheets?
Okay. So A1 to A. I'm not a Google.
Yeah. So normally I would,
I'm not a Google Sheets expert, So,
yeah.
So I mean, for us, except I see what you're saying, but we are used to more A to A, right? At least that's what you would say in the context of Excel, right? If this is what we know. Oh, sorry. Say equals to this. Okay. So again, I know I can answer the question if I really understand it,
Yeah, so in
but
Sheets,
I really don't.
In Google Sheets, if you want to refer a column just starting, let's say you wanted to start in A4, and then you want to say from A4 down the column.
Oh, to the end.
Without end, yes. So in Google Sheets you can do that. In Excel we cannot do.
Okay. I haven't used Google Sheets to that extent. So the only Google Sheets I've done is really when people ask me to support them, and I try to use my Excel brain and just try to twist it a little to do that. Although I've written some, scripts for Google Sheets, but yeah, it's not something I use every day. So I mean, but
I think
we can't do that, right? We can't do this, right?
No.
That's what he's trying to say. We can't do that. So, okay, I think I now fully understand the question. And he's saying without using a table, because he's trying to keep things dynamic. If he uses a table, it would always expand. But
and
if
Google
he
Sheets does not have tables.
Yes, it doesn't have tables. So if he does A1 to A, irrespective of where the data comes in, he would always be fine. Yes. So, but we would typically use, tables. But again, for us, there are many ways to create dynamic ranges. I guess that would be the way I would answer it. If I'm not using a table prior to now, I could use, index, for example, right? Like if you do something like this, okay, sorry, let's just do, since I'm sorry about, if you don't mind me doing something. Okay, so you could do something like this. Normally you could say A1 to index, of everything, and maybe you do count A of this, something like that. So if you do this, right, you see it gives you this. The moment you change this to, say, you can see that this range, as in, keeps expanding. So this is what I would have, put in like a range name. This is what I would do, right? So it starts at the top. It's able to figure out, how many rows it has. So this is how we do it simply. Some people will use the offset for this. You can also use the XLOOKUP, for this. Yeah, but this way, that's the closest thing to, what it is he's trying to say. So this is what I would do if I were not using a table, in that sense.
Wow, thank you. That perfectly answered my question. Thank you so much. Yeah, the idea of creating dynamic ranges and all that. Yeah, without using tables.
Oh, okay. Right, sorry. Yeah, if you had spoken earlier, it would have helped me easily to give you the answer. My brain was running. I was like, okay, what's the person trying to say? But I later figured what you're trying to say. Yeah, but if you're not using a table, yeah, those are the kind of the ideas we do. Index, indirect, offset, which people don't like to, then XLOOKUP. Those four are kind of what I use. Yes. Is it just curious? What is Mr. Excel menu on your Excel? Is it an Excel add-in? Yeah, very good question. So it just allows you to, when you work on MrExcel.com, if you have a range and you want to copy both the range and the formulas, so when you do capture range, it's more or less like creating an HTML version of everything on that in that range, the formulas, the conditional formatting, so that you can easily paste it on MrExcel.com. Because most times when we answer a question, you don't want to start. So when you paste that way, it will paste both the range, you will see the range, and you will see all the formulas in all the cells. It's a very nice, cool thing. So that's what I use it for. So I just capture the range, and then I go and paste in. So when I answer questions on the forums, that's what I use. Yeah.
And for those who don't know, MrExcel.com is a website from Bill Jelen, and it includes a forum. And it's one of the places I recommend people every time people come and ask, how can I learn Excel? And what I recommend always is to participate in forums, trying to help people, trying to answer people's questions, because that's an easy way of finding real scenarios without just being exercises or sample data that you are given in a YouTube tutorial, for example. In there, you will be in touch with real scenarios, real problems that people have, and they look for help there. And by trying to help other people, we can help ourselves learning. So that's what I always recommend. It's one of my favorite forums.
Oh yeah, okay. I didn't even know you were there. Celia, yeah. Oh, okay. I was trying to get a particular slide. I can't get it now. Where when people ask me how do I get better at Excel, I just have like about 6 things. But one of them there is joining a forum. Yeah, right. It gives you more examples than you probably can experience in your own day-to-day job. You will not experience all those problems, but it also helps you to see how other people from other disciplines use Excel and the kind of problems they run into. So I tell you the truth, if you sit on Mr. Excel, there's hardly anything that happens now that hasn't been solved today.
So yes, and also if you need help, instead of asking sometimes people send me an email or contact me on LinkedIn trying to have my help for something. And sometimes I help when I have time, but other times I'm just not available. And I always say, if you post your question in the forum, you will probably get better answers and more than one answer, and you will be able to choose the one you like best. So it's also a way, the best place to ask questions, because people there are just answering Excel questions for sports. So, and they are just waiting for your questions. So it's the best way to get
absolutely.
questions answered.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess we are over the time, but like you say, I didn't see the time passing by. Thank you so much, Victor, for joining us, for sharing your expertise, always with such a good mood, and it was amazing. And this is one of those sessions where we will have to go back every now and then, for sure. But the array of examples and different difficulty
levels,
scenarios was great. So people can really use this session to start to get more acquainted with the new 14 functions that we just got available in the last few months. So if that's okay with everyone, if no further questions or comments, I guess we can stop the recording and say goodbye. I wish you all a very happy holiday season, and we will be back in January 18th. So until then, enjoy, and I hope you can take some time off to spend with your family if you can, and we will be back soon. So I'm going to stop the recording here.
Okay.
And